Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I used Railclone on my Paris project to model some of the buildings on the street. So first of all, I used standard modeling tools for the buildings on the foreground and a bit on the buildings on the midground. But also I found it very useful to use Railclone on repetitive building blocks, such as these over here. And I'm going to show you how with simple splines, and you can get very nice results. So this is the object, and this is what you're going to need. You're going to need a few base models for your building, a few sections like a regular section, second regular section, and the section with a door entrance. And you have to mix these up and randomize them across a spline, which is very easy to do. So this is the Railclone object. Oh, and also you have to have a material, the same material for each building section, something like a multi-object material that has separate materials for the glass, for the joinery, for the rails, and whatever material is on your facade and your roof. So they have to be same multi-mat material applied to all the building sections. And you have to also apply this material to your Railclone object after you made it. So this is the base of it. As you can see, it's a regular Railclone linear array cloned along a spline. So you would have to first draw up your building vartals, your building blocks, and your sidewalks. And then you have to load the splines into a spline here in Railclone object. And then what you have to do is import the segments like I showed you before, the building regular section, the midsection, and the midsection with an entrance. And to increase the variation of this, and you can also input them into a randomize operator, which you can find it from here, or a sequence operator, or both, which you can find it in the same place. So what I did here is I inputted the regular section and the midsection into a randomize, so they randomize the two sections that doesn't include an entrance, and the section that includes an entrance, I've combined it with the first two into a sequence. So once every 3 sections, we have an entrance in the building. And another thing is when you have objects like this with high polys, of course, you may have streets that are not this a lot of modeled, but you have fewer details. As you can see, I have a lot of details here, a lot of polys. One of these building sections is, just give it a second here, is about 600 to 800,000 polys, which is very high, considering that we're going to multiply this a lot of times. So you can see this one has 600,000, and then if you multiply it by 10 times here, you have 10 sections, then that's already 6 million polygons, which for some of your PCs might be too much. So that's why it's a good idea when you're doing the Railclone object, if you have the whole spline, a large spline like this, you can make it show just a part of it from the base object properties. So instead of having full length ticked here, you untick it, and then you select the length that you want to be displayed in your viewport. So let me show you. If you go to display and change it to points cloud, you will reduce the number of polys in your viewport, and it's much easier now to edit everything and play with the distance. So just you test it, and the render is going to render the whole object anyway. So if I go up here in the base object, I can decrease this for testing to 3000 centimeters. But if I really want to see the results, I can keep it at 6000, so I see how many building entrances I have. But now I'm going to do this Railclone object from the beginning. So if you open your Railclone listener, you can untick one of your Railclone objects to not be displayed, so you can build a new one. So let's go to i2 software, Railclone Pro, drag and drop, open style editor, let's draw a linear array and a spline. And let's pick this spline here and connect it into the linear array. Now let's take a segment. And for start, let's begin with the main regular segment of the building regular section. And let me show you how this will look. Firstly, let me turn this to point cloud, and let's connect the building regular section to the default slot. So this is a building block with the same building section cloned all over the spline. Now, the offset here from the spline is because of the pivot alignment, so we should go here and always check your pivot in all your section that are going to be used in a Railclone object. So you have to place them in the same place for each one, to the origin point. And then select it, the alignment for X and Y to pivot from automatic. Okay, and now it's okay. So let's see now how this looks in a mesh object. It's gonna take up some time. Also, you need to increase the display mode, the limits for your faces. I'm just gonna increase it to 50. Actually, no, let me just first, let me decrease, let me untick full length. So I'm showing you what I was talking about earlier. So here, if we change this to 4,000 centimeters, we can have just a small part of the section, of the building section. And if I want it, actually I want to see a corner for this one, so I'm gonna start at 4,000 and end by 4,000. Yeah, something like this. So now I can go ahead and see as a mesh. Hopefully it's not gonna move very slowly. Okay, now it says maximum number of faces reached, so I need to increase the display limit. Instead of 5 million, let's see if it works with 50 million. It should work. Okay, so this is how it looks like without material. So you can go ahead now and assign your material, your multi-sub object. So you have at least your windows transparent, because this building anyway is going to be in the all the way in the background, so small errors and small mistakes are not going to be visible, but you have to be able to discern some kind of a detail on the building so you can see that it's really been worked on it. So this is just using one regular section, and we have 3, so we can increase a variation. So if I turn it back, I can turn this to boxes. If I turn it back to point cloud and I open the style editor, I'm going to create some new segments, 2 more segments. Okay, this one will be midsection. This one will be midsection with an entrance door. Okay, let me remove this from the slot. And now let's combine these into an operator. The regular and the midsection, will combine it into a randomize operator. Leave them at 100%. Or actually you can decrease the midsection 50%. And then draw a sequence and connect the randomizer and the midsection with an entrance in this sequence. And now in the sequence, you will have you will set it that your midsection with an entrance will occur only after, let's say, 4 randomizers have, or 3 randomized sections have already been applied, which is like what on a street would look like. Entrances are not on every section of the building. Now if we connect the sequence to the default slot, and of course we have to adjust the pivot for each one. Set it to pivot X and Y. Good. And now let's see how the mesh looks like. Just give it a few seconds. Okay, so this is how the Railclone object looks. It's not very desirable here when at the angles of the spline, but you can adjust this by adjusting spline vertices. And keep in mind that building is going to be far away from the camera, so you might get off with them, just like this. And of course, you can also play with the operators with the randomize and sequence, or you can try new ones depending on how you've modeled your base building sections. Okay, that was all. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.